Reading that too.
Adam.
Hey, Nicole, how are you?
You? Call to order the regular meeting of the Council of the Corporation of the Municipality of Kincardine at 5 p.m. on May 28th, 2025 in the council chambers at the Municipal Administration Center. There will be roll call. Councillor Blackwell. Present. Councillor Kavanagh.
Present.
Councillor Hinchfer.
Present.
Councillor Pranger. Present. Councillor Steinhoff Gray. Present. Councillor Stewart.
Present.
Councillor Williams.
Present.
The land acknowledgement.
Thank you very much. I would like to begin this council meeting by acknowledging that we are gathered on the traditional lands and treaty territory of the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, which includes the Chippewa of Nawash Unceded First Nation and the Chippewa of Saugeen First Nation. We recognize that their ancestors were the first to inhabit, care for, and live on this land, and that they continue to be its stewards today. The municipality of Kincardine recognizes and deeply appreciates the significant contributions that Indigenous people have made, both in caring for this land and in shaping and strengthening our community through history and into the present. As a public service organization, we are committed to learning about and honoring Indigenous history and culture. We are dedicated to meaningful actions that advance our shared journey towards truth, healing, and reconciliation. Thank you.
This evening, we have invited both councillors and members of the public to attend chambers wearing blue and white as a symbol of our support for the Walkerton District Community School. Our hearts are heavy as we extend our deepest sympathies to the Walkerton District Community School this evening, students and staff, the community at large, and especially the families and friends who are grieving following last week's tragic accident. On May 23rd, the lives of many were changed forever. The accident claimed the lives of 5 individuals: Olivia Rourke, Roman McLeod, Danica Baker, Candice Ford, and Matt Eckert. The ripples of this tragedy is unimaginable, and the loss goes well beyond Walkerton. We all hold those who are affected in our hearts, thoughts, and prayers. A tragedy like this reminds us of the fragility of life. It reminds us to hold those we love closer and alters the fabric of our community. On behalf of the municipality of Kincardine, we extend our most sincere condolences at this time of loss and profound sadness. Our flags on municipal poles have been lowered to half-mast, and they will remain there until the services of all of these individuals have come to a conclusion. We will observe a minute of silence in honor of those lives that have been lost, fully aware that no comments that we make this evening can either change or do much in terms of comfort. But we acknowledge and we grieve with the families tonight. As a community, as individuals, the loss is unimaginable and heart-wrenching. As we enter into a minute of silence, I will request that those in the chambers remove their hats. We will stand for that minute. You can be seated. Are there any amendments, additions, or deletions from the agenda this evening? Disclosure of pecuniary interests and the general nature thereof. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you, I'll have a notice of a declaration of pecuniary interest in close. I just want to note that I will make that at the appropriate time in closed session. Thank you.
Adoption of minutes from the regular and special meetings of council. Resolution 0528 2025-01, moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Kavanagh, that the minutes of the council meetings held on May 14th, 2025 be accepted as printed. All in favor? That passes. Matters for public participation. We have some delegations this evening. And our first delegation is the 2025 U13B OMHA Provincial Championship presentation. The action kicked off on Friday with a hard-fought 3-3 tie against the Huntsville Otters. Later that same day, the Canucks secured a 4-2 win over the Thorold Blackhawks, setting the tone for a strong tournament run. Saturday saw the team face off against the Petrolia Oilers, where a tight match ended in Kincardin's favor with a 2-1 victory. That momentum carried the team into Sunday's semifinal, where the Canucks defeated the East Lambton Eagles 3-1 to punch their ticket to the final game. In the championship match, Kincardine took on the Ennismore Eagles. Ennismore struck first with a goal in the second period, but Kincardine came alive in the third. Ryder tied the game early in the period, and Easton sealed the win with a game-winning goal. The stands were packed with Canucks fans whose cheers echoed through the arena as the final buzzer sounded. It was an electric finish to an unforgettable tournament, and the players were thrilled to bring the Red Hats and the championship title home to Kincardine. Well done.
Good evening. I'm going to have Deputy Mayor Clark join us for recognition of each of the players at the back. We'll call each player up. I'm going to ask that everybody hold their applause until the end, and then we're going to go outside for a group photo. Come on, Becky, you're going to take a photo. I'll just have them over here. Yeah. All right, first up, Mason Caravaggio. Bring your plaque up, Mason. Yeah. Oh, dueling photos. Lawson Cahoon. Brady Collins. Lincoln Cahoots. Ryder Dietrich. Andrew Humphrey. Easton Lowry. Nash Little. Ronan McIntosh. Max Malhotra. Blake McRae. Evan McGilvery. Spencer McKenzie. Will Murphy. Carson Tout. Colby Walton. We'd also like to recognize the coaching staff. So head coach Brent Walton. Assistant coach Kent Lytle. Trainer Wes Dietrich. Trainer Brock Lowry. And the guy who pulls it all together, the team manager, Evan Cahoon. So congratulating your U13 the OMHA provincial champions.
Don't have any.
That was fun. Thanks for coming. Thanks for letting the kids win. Stand. How are you?
Next delegation is from the Society of Energy Professionals, Eric and Dave. And you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. I'm just Eric, actually. So thank you, Deputy Mayor, Council. I'm here on behalf of the Society of United Professionals. We are the people that supply engineering, supervisors, specialists, scientists for not only the Bruce, but at OPG and also for Hydro One. Our locals consist also more recently of legal aid lawyers, etc. So we are the #1 choice for professionals in Ontario, over 10,000. So why are we here today? We're here to ask for your support with an initiative. As we know, over the last 3-4 months, it's been quite interesting politically. So our union decided to try to unify ourselves, but with others, under a common banner called Canada United. So it's really basic. We decided to go with non-partisan, non-political kind of rally cry, because with our neighbors to the south, obviously beating the drums of 51st state and challenging conventions that Canadians have enjoyed for so many years, and trust. We feel that we need to get a little bit more protective in terms of our workforce, which includes everyone. So this campaign not only is being enjoyed by the society, it's also being enjoyed by the Power Workers Union, members of management, and previous members of management. I had to. He's my boss, so I picked him out of the crowd, but I do, but I won't share them. And the back is support Canada's workers, just quite simply, right? Why are we doing this now? Well, obviously because of the tariff threats that are being implemented right now, there's a significant rhetoric that's coming out of the South that we're very concerned about, and it does translate in the near future for this municipality in a direct way, if you're not aware of it. In the next year and a half, Bruce Power is going to have to make a decision through the federal government and the Ontario government as to what technology to select for the new Bruce C station. So obviously, as scientists and engineers, we have our opinion, and it's a long one, so I'm not going to read it out to you, but it basically, we're taking from a labor's perspective that CANDU technology should be considered the number one choice, right? Lots of reasons for it. I'll be preaching to the choir in some ways, but maintaining our energy sovereignty is important. It's always been there for us for 60 years at this site. Since Douglas Point, we've enjoyed bringing our energy source from Saskatchewan and Elliott Lake, being processed through Blind River, Ontario, Port Hope. Fuel bundles go into the reactor, and it stays on our border, and it stays within our workforce. That, as well as the technology that AECL currently holds, and then AtkinsRéalis, federal government on March 9th pumped in $304 million into the AtkinsRéalis platform for a new CANDU. That's a good sign, but we can't let our guard down. So that's my message. I think I might have exceeded my 5 minutes. We are offering up gifts to you in support. So if you want to go through your support staff, and if you'd like a shirt, these are union made in Canada. We made sure, because that's important if we're going to be doing that kind of thing. Bruce Power is endorsing us. In fact, we've have a mutual campaign. Theirs is more focused on Canadian supply chain. So we're working together for once instead of adversarial, which is interesting. And we're heading into bargaining, so that might not always be the way. But for now, we are very much aligned, and we would love to give you some shirts. So I do have a fine selection of shirts. If we can coordinate with your admin staff, send me your size. I'll drop off a nice little care package. Wear it during Labor Day. Wear it while you're mowing the lawn. We don't care. But it's a nice sign of solidarity with all workers across Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
No, but
Are there any questions for Eric? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in the presentation. If the public is interested in supporting the campaign and getting shirts, where would they be able to be directed to?
My personal information or corporate information can be provided after the meeting through the admin, I think, right? Yeah. Sorry, I should have said through you. Through the chair.
Councillor Blackwell, is that a follow-up?
we in general announcements already.
Thank you. It's not necessarily an announcement, but one of the elements on your presentation, you kind of was asking for council support of your kind of broad Canada United campaign. I know that in October, even prior to the tariffs, Bruce County as a whole passed a resolution in support of the CANDU reactors. So we're home to the largest CANDU site in the world, I believe, in Canada at least, and that their importance to Ontario and Canada's economic growth and stability is pretty critical. Is that something that you would like to see our council consider as well?
Yes, it would be appropriate at this time to offer some support, although we're not going to be forceful on that or like insist upon it. It's something that you have to recognize as a group because of the political charged. A year ago, I was openly canvassing for CANDO, and it was a struggle. Why? Because we had an American administration at Bruce Power. We had definitely a difference of opinion on how the Westinghouse AP1000, which is the competitor, performs, and how it would be effective. We've challenged him on many fronts, but since Mr. Trump has decided to reach into Canadian politics in such a dramatic manner, I think that all the arguments that we were trying to present at a year ago has dissipated. Like, I haven't heard. I was at the Canadian Nuclear Association convention in April. Last year, it was all Westinghouse and American design and a very slick package. This year, it was a complete opposite. It was AtkinsRéalis front and center, Canadian supply chain. And so I'm not as concerned. If you want to offer up open support, absolutely, we would absolutely love that, because it just adds to the voice when we start to go through the federal and provincial governments for funding, because it's ultimately them that will decide what technology they're going to provide, and they need to hear your voice.
Thank you. Are there any more? Councillor Stewart?
Thank you, and thank you, Eric. As you're well aware, we're a very inclusive community here. I noticed that your shirt in your Canada would be a lot smaller than my shirt in my Canada. I hope these things come in XXL.
So even the size bigger if you wish it.
Great. I'll be proud to wear it. Thank you.
We're very inclusive.
Any further questions? Thank you, Eric, for your presentation this evening.
Thank you.
Our next delegation is from Kincardine Pride, Jonathan Farrell. Welcome, Jonathan.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having us here tonight. Our primary objective in being with you this evening is to share some information that we've collected through a community survey that we shared broadly across social media channels, reached out to as many people as we could to do some fact finding about the 2S LGBTQI community here in Kincardine. So on the screens around us, I have some of this information that we have collected available for us. There's many slides, so I won't linger over all of them, but they are available to you if you ever wish to take a look and find some further details about these things. Our community, as we see here, our goal is to see Kincardine grow as an inclusive community where everybody can truly feel welcome, regardless of their identity. Whatever facet makes up a person's identity should not influence how that person is perceived in their community. And as Kincardine Pride, we strive towards these goals with everything that we do. And in our survey of the community, we have found some results that help us to understand the shifting demographics of this town and the experiences that people in various communities in Kincardine experience. So looking at these slides here, we see the generational demographics of our survey respondents to give an idea of who has shared this information with us. As we see, the largest group in this is between 35 and 44 years old, but we do have people who responded to questions in our survey from the full spectrum of adults living in Kincardine. Gender identity, our respondents were primarily cis women and then cis men making up the next largest group, but we had other people who identified on different parts of the gender spectrum as well, helping us all to see that there are many gender identities present in Kincardine. As a teacher at the high school, I also see the growth of more and more different identities happening in this town. And as life in Kincardine continues, this diversification of the gender spectrum and of the identities that make up our community is going to continue as well. The sexual orientation and identities of the people who responded to the survey, primarily our respondents were heterosexual people answering this survey, though there is a growing number of people who identify on other areas of the spectrum of sexuality and gender as well. As far as where the people come from, the vast majority of the respondents to the community were from the municipality of Kincardine itself. 20% were not, but several of the ones who are not currently living in Kincardine did grow up in Kincardine and move elsewhere, which, as the organization of Kincardine Pride, it's nice for us to know that we are finding these people who have lived in Kincardine, who continue to see part of their life in Kincardine, and who are reaching out to stay involved with the growing queer community in our town. So as we look at what people have shared with us, what they want us to know, and what they divulged through this survey, we see that the main focus that people have for this is quality of life, really. There are people who are seeking more family-friendly activities, places where diverse families can be seen as a part of their community and can know that their children, their marriages, anything like that are going to be treated the same as everybody else. There are also many people who are seeking support for mental wellness issues that may come along with having an identity other than your standard cisgendered heterosexual person. It is no surprise that people who identify outside of that have some more difficult experiences in small towns, but asking for more more resources to help with their lives in this town is something that the council should be aware of. There are more ideas and suggestions for what can be done in Kincardine to help people celebrate their pride, celebrate their identity. Again, primarily it's people looking for communities. There are people seeking workshops, speakers, different ways to help the community to understand the experiences of people who live among them and help to build a more inclusive space where everybody can feel at home. There are ideas for social gatherings and different ways that the community of Kincardine itself can contribute to a wider spectrum of life happening in this town, whether that's, social engagements such as comedy nights, music, drag performances, anything like that, all the way through to board game nights, speakers, workshops, ways to share education, and just make sure that everybody can feel included and seen in the community where they are choosing to build their lives. As we work through and see more of these, there are some priorities that people have identified as areas that they would like to see develop and improve for diverse communities in Kincardine, specifically uplifting trans rights, mental health, and Indigenous voices. As we look around the news and see how things are developing in the world, trans voices are very frequently threatened and reduced in various spheres right now, and the trans community present here in Kincardine has expressed through our survey that they would appreciate some more opportunities to have people understand who they are and to see the way that they fit into the community and do not pose a threat, simply bring more diversity to the life that we all build here in Kincardine together. There is more information available in the slideshow, but I believe from the heads looking at clocks that I've probably used up my 5 minutes at this point. This information is available to you to look for more, and as you take time to look over it, we at Kincardine Pride would be happy to answer more questions and help you to deepen your understanding of the diverse communities that live here in Kincardine.
Thank you, Jonathan, for that presentation. Are there any questions? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you, thank you to the group from Kincardine Pride for coming and for all that you do all year round. I think there's sometimes an assumption that the only day that Pride is celebrated or recognized is on the day of the parade, but certainly I know that the work that's being done and those within the community, it's an all year round thing. That said, could you remind us of the date of the parade and the activities that are coming up as we prepare for June, which is Pride Month?
I am going to turn to the other members of Kincardine Pride to make sure I get this right. 22nd? 21st. Good thing I turned. All right, our Pride Parade and family celebration will be June 21st.
Are there any other questions, Councillor Hitchberger?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Thanks for coming tonight, John. You spoke very well tonight, and I should mention the same thing about Mr. Teasler previously. And what you say is very timely. And if I borrow just a bit about what Mr. Teasler talked about, is some of the changes that may have occurred in other countries of the world when small majorities think they have a mandate to impose their will on everybody. You can actually learn what's not the right thing to do by seeing it being done elsewhere. And I think that sometimes in my life, some of the people who I'd learned the most lessons from were the ones that weren't actually looking after my best interests. So I think that what we're seeing occur elsewhere just illustrates, for me personally, the value and the importance of having secular government and the role of government at all levels and the elected officials therein to support the rights of all people in communities and not simply cater to what majorities or strong minorities may want. So thanks again for coming tonight.
Are there any other questions around the table? Thanks very much for coming and thanks for that presentation.
Thank you, everyone.
Matters for discussion and direction. We have some staff reports. The first one being the municipal accommodation tax, short-term rental licensing update and proposed next steps, strategic initiatives, 2025-10. Manager Fiozzi, if you want to perhaps give a summary or an overview, it's very detailed.
Thank you. Through you, Deputy Mayor Clark. Council directed staff to investigate the implementation of a municipal accommodation tax, or known as the MAT, and short-term rental accommodation licensing, which you could say STRA as the acronym. And the purpose of this report is really to provide council with an update on the information collected to date to help with decision making. And so based on the information in the report, staff are seeking direction from council on whether you'd like us to continue to explore and work on the next steps that are proposed and described in this report. And I'm going to just do a really quick overview, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kevin McPhillips, who's from McSweeney and Associates, and he's online to do a little bit of a deeper dive around the financial forecast. So I just wanted to note that the MAT and the short-term rental accommodation licensing have really two very different purposes. And I know that council is aware, but again, for public purpose as well, I'd like to say that the purpose of the MAT is really to ensure that visitors contribute to the upkeep and development of the community that they enjoy and visit, and that the revenues are reinvested into projects that support tourism, economic growth, and infrastructure improvements in the municipality that they're enjoying. Whereas short-term rental licensing really refers to the regulations and permits required by municipalities. And if we were one that put this in place, it would be for people who rent out their properties for 28 days or less in exchange of payment. And some of the reasons for short-term rental accommodation, again, are very different than the MAT. It really does ensure that short-term rentals are operated in a safe and legal manner, that they're located in neighborhoods and don't impact the neighboring properties, and that it really ensures that accommodations comply with the Ontario Building Code, which is an advantage to the visitor as well. They know that all of these safety measures are in place and they're in safe accommodations. But I would say that both the MAT and the short-term rental accommodations are connected, as it will be difficult to collect the MAT on short-term rentals if they weren't licensed. And so I just want to make those points and just give you a quick, really high-level overview of some of the work that's happened to date. We have been having internal staff meetings around the MAT and the licensing process, looking at organizational resourcing and the impacts that would be needed to put either both or in place. We've invited other municipalities to come to our meetings to talk about the best practices. We've had invited in Tourism Ontario, a regional tourism organization, to both understand the benefits and the challenges. We have identified the number of short-term rental accommodations, and that was completed by Avenue Insights and Analytics, also known as Hamari. That's their other sub-branch that looks at short-term rental accommodations. And they've scraped the internet and have identified 85 to 167 in the council report. Sorry, it says 127. It should say 167 in my report. In their report, it's correct. Which are active listings, and that's really, it was a scrape of the internet, and it has been incorporated into the work that Kevin's going to talk to you about shortly. And I just wanted to note that those numbers don't reflect properties that are rented to contract workers or other tenants that rent for longer than 28 days. And so that is, they're considered long-term residents, and they're governed under the provincial legislation under the Residential Tenants Act. So, and that means therefore they're exempt from that. So just we just want to mention, because I know that's something that the municipality has talked about, wanting to regulate these types of rentals, but that, like, if it's after 28 days, it really does not fall into our jurisdiction. So I just wanted to mention that piece. We've developed a communications and engagement plan. It's on our website. We have focused this part of the engagement that's in your report on the hotel and motel accommodators, and just introducing them around the concept. And explaining, council's sort of wishes to explore this and the reasons for that, and understanding some of their concerns and comments. And so that's all in your report as an attachment. But I just wanted to note that one of the things that stood out for me, and you think tourism's in the department that I manage, and you think I would sort of understand this, but it did sort of articulate and crystallize for me that the municipality of Kincardine really does lack year-round attractions. We're not like Blue Mountains, where we have 4 seasons that sort of drive tourists to the area. And I heard a lot about that from the hotel accommodators, where we are primarily driven by summer events. We do have, other shoreline communities that offer the same benefits of a beach and sunsets, etc. But one of the things that drive people here in the summer are our summer events, and so hotels did talk about the sort of high occupancy rates during the summer, but the winter and shoulder seasons were much lower than as we were talking than I realized. And so the piece that sort of ties into all of that then is the financial impact, that sort of tax model and application analysis, which Kevin is going to talk to you about. So I'm going to turn it over to him around the financial forecast and the analysis around the MAT, and then open it up for some questions if that's what you would like.
Perfect. Just making sure everyone can hear me here. At least I saw one head nod, so we'll do that. I'm trying to share my screen, but it's disabled. Any chance I can get access to that?
Yes, it's happening as we speak. Just a moment.
Sure.
Are you able to share your screen at the moment?
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Okay.
Now I just have to make sure I share it properly. So I'm hoping everybody can see the title slide here. I think I can see it on the computer there. So just want to say thank you everyone for having us here. Really looking forward to presenting this information. Just a quick agenda about what we're going to be doing. Talk really briefly about who the heck we are, why we're here, what a MAT is, what the purpose of the model that we built was, some clarification notes. Lori touched on a few of them. And then just really high level understanding the model and the numbers that came out of it and what we're looking at, and then talk to those financial outcomes and talk through project next steps if that's the decision council moves to. So just really quickly, McSweeney Associates, my employer, we're an ECDEV and community development specialist firm. We're a small but mighty team, and we are just really thankful to be doing this work with the municipality of Kincardine. We all touch on all projects. So the 4 of us here are a really tight-knit group. So I am supported by my colleagues, but I'm sort of the resident nerd of the team, for lack of a better term. So I'm in charge of presenting the numbers here tonight and building out that model. So why are we here? The municipality of Kincardine wants to have a thorough background analysis on what a MAT would look like in terms of financial modeling to help council with future decision making. And so we built this model with that in mind. In terms of what it is, it's a fee levied on short-term and overnight accommodations. As Lori mentioned, it only applies to stays under 28 days. That's provincial legislation. There's nothing that can be done about that. Typically, the MAT is a 4% surcharge. There are other municipalities that go higher. I think Toronto, if I remember correctly, has gone up to 8%, but realistically, small communities in Ontario are focused on that 4% number. It's just not realistic to think that you're going to be applying the same sort of percentage that Toronto or a more in-demand, like Blue Mountains type four-season community might be charging. So in terms of the model, why this calculation? Really, it's just a high-level, simple figure that helps understand and articulate what sort of financial information the municipality could be seeing if a MAT is introduced into Kincardine. And it's about understanding the potential impact of a MAT. And it's really important that you understand the financial numbers behind it, because it's great to talk about in generalities, but when it comes down to it, it's understanding this is an amount of money that the municipality can hope to achieve, and what can you do with that money down the line. So just some clarification notes. Again, as Lori mentioned, short-term accommodations are included in this model, but they're pulled out as a separate piece. So they build into the total number, but they're separate from the hotels and motels, because without that step that Lori mentioned about getting some sort of licensing for short-term accommodators in place, it's simply not feasible to think that you'd be able to go after getting that fee from anybody who rents out short-term accommodations. You might get some, but it would just be incredibly hard to track and manage. I also want to note data accuracy and the wide range of financial outcomes. So where possible, we used local information, but just because of the nature of available information, we did have to rely on RTO 7, which is huge geographically. It includes Blue Mountains, it includes some of Simcoe County. And so the yearly occupied room rate, the occupancy rate, and the average daily rate just are by definition, because of the geography we had to use, they're a little bit vague. And so we provided a range rather than one specific number to hopefully capture the potential outcomes and understand that there is a wide range. The other note is that we were conservative intentionally in our estimates. So we used the lower range of things just so that we're not suggesting you're going to be doubling what the reality is going to be. And so we wanted to err on the side of caution reasonably to provide a more conservative estimate. The other note is the distribution of funds. So it's really important to note that at least 50% of any funds that come in must be directed to a tourism-specific organization or aspect of the community. And so this isn't simply a pool of money that the municipality can dip into to do whatever, wherever they want. As Lori mentioned, it's a way to recoup some funds that visitors are going to be using when they're using of the municipality when they interact with the community and visit the community. And so it's really important that at least 50% of that goes back into some form of tourism entity that the municipality can establish. And so that, again, is legislation. That's not something that can be, there's no workaround for that. So that's just really important to note when looking at the final funds. So in terms of the model itself, it's fairly straightforward. It takes your average daily number of rooms. So the average number of available daily rooms. So the available number of rooms across all hotels, motels, and short-term accommodators within the municipality of Kincardine. Then multiplies that by the number of days in the year and multiplies that by the occupancy rate to essentially get the number of yearly occupied rooms. So the number of rooms that are rented out on a yearly basis. It then multiplies that by the average cost of those rooms. And all in all, you're getting the number of rooms multiplied by the daily rate, which gets the total number of dollars spent on accommodations from all visitors into the municipality. That gets you the total annual revenue of hotel, motel, and short-term accommodators. You then just multiply that by the 4% MAT tax. And what we have done is adjusted for price elasticity. So price elasticity just suggests that with any good, the higher the price is, the less somebody's going to be interested in using it. So if you charged $1 million per night for a hotel room, I suspect you'd have a hard time getting folks to come down to the municipality. And so just having a 4% increase will affect that slightly. It is a very small increase, decrease, but we did adjust for that just to reflect market demands. So in terms of the inputs, available room estimates, 299 is the low estimate, 350 is the average, and high is 470. We came up with these, so there's a currently estimated 352 rooms. Lori and her team and our team worked through speaking with and getting in contact with some hotel and motels to get that number. The low estimate is to reflect the potential for an increase in the number of long-term stays within those hotel rooms. So it doesn't reflect anything like occupancy rates. It's simply if a hotel or motel goes under construction, or if there's a larger number of long-term stays past that 28 days, that will get impacted. The high estimate includes the potential expansion that's currently underway, but not yet reflected within the data. You never know what happens until ground breaks or the hotel motel opens. So that's where those numbers come from. The annual occupancy rate, again, these are RTO 7 numbers now. So the average was over the last approximately 10 years, and then the high and low estimates were just simply the high and low yearly rates from there. We did exclude a COVID-19 impacted year. In the report we just talked about, that was such an extreme event that if something similar to that occurs again, it's likely a MAT would just look different than a general MAT program that you would continue having. It's likely that there would be some supports in place. And so we excluded that number because it was just such an extreme outlier. Finally, the average daily rate estimates. So the low estimate is similar to the occupancy rate. We took the average over the last 10 years. The low estimate was the low number, and the high estimate was the highest number within the last 10 years. You'll note that the high estimate is quite a bit higher than the low and average numbers. It was an outlier, but the only reason we kept it was because it was a more recent number than the rest. It was the most recent year. And so we know that things have gotten more expensive in the last few years across the board for people. And so seeing that number substantially higher, it may be unlikely that we see that high end as consistently within the municipality of Kincardine, but at the same time, we just want to reflect that, yeah, things have gotten more expensive. And so it's possible that it is that high. And then, as Lori noted, we have included short-term accommodations here. So we used 100 as the current number, 127 as high. And what we did was just within these, we got one static number. We didn't get a range of estimates, but we applied the same percentage to low, current, and high that we did in the short-term accommodations. And so we just adjusted in the same way that we did to keep everything similar between short-term accommodations and hotel motels. But essentially, these are just the same metrics applied to short-term accommodations as we did hotel motels. So all in, what the heck does that mean? Financial outcomes. So projected MAT revenue for overnight accommodations was between $260,000 and $473,000 on an annual basis, with projected MAT revenue for short-term rental accommodations between $60,000 and $110,000. So all in, thinking between $328,000 and $580,000 approximately. These are rounded, so don't worry about if the math is off by a few $1,000s. It's just because I rounded them because nobody likes decimal points or anything like that in this sort of presentation. But again, these are erring on the side of caution, and we have a wide range of error. The hope is if we do continue with this project and we speak more directly with hotel and motel accommodators and short-term rental folks in the community, we will get more accurate projections as we go. But just because of the reality that data is what it is now, we can only work with the best we have. There is a wide range here. And again, we want to note that this is total revenue. So this is not inclusive of the 50% split. There will be administrative costs to instituting such a program. And there will also be a 50% split at least to a tourism specific entity. But those are the potential projected total MAT revenues on a yearly basis for the community. So building off of that, the next steps are, this was sort of phase one, the financial implications of the MAT. And in the broader report that was attached, there was also a macro analysis of the tourism industry and just some potential impacts that has on future MAT funding and what you can do with it. Phases 2 and 3 get more local. So phase 2 speaks to local analysis, doing some stakeholder consultative work, speaking with hotel and motels, and then also just understanding some best practices. So what sort of governance model might make sense to administer the funds? What sort of revenue distribution makes sense? How have other communities in Ontario put in a MAT, and what sort of structures have they used? And then phase 3 says, okay, so here's some best practices. How would that apply within the municipality of Kincardine? What are some templated implementation options? What sort of steps are needed between sort of deciding to go for it and bringing that in for the municipality? And then also down the line, how do you do yearly reports? What makes sense for the municipality? As well as the nice thing about the model that we have is you can put in any numbers and get any output. And so as things go down the line, if you do implement a MAT and want to adjust that forecasting, how can you manage that? What does it make sense to do? And just working through those steps with Lori and your team to make sure that the municipality is in the best position possible so that if a MAT does get brought forward, there's confidence in it, the messaging around it is solid, everything that the municipality might need to bring that forward in a positive way. So with that, again, thank you so much for having us. Happy to answer any questions. Ian and myself have been the main folks on this team. So we're happy to answer any questions really at any time over email. Our email addresses are there. But really just, again, thank you for having us. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kevin. There's a motion that I'll need to put forward that I probably should have put forward prior to this presentation. The resolution is that staff be directed to continue the exploration of the municipal accommodation tax and short-term rental accommodation tax licensing as outlined in the next steps identified in Strategic Initiatives 2025-10. A mover? Councillor Blackwell, seconder. Councillor Williams. Are there any questions? Councillor Steinhoff-Gray?
Thank you, through you, Chair. Thank you for the time and effort that went into this presentation, and I love that you used the lower estimates just so that we're working off a non-exaggerated proposal in front of us. I do appreciate that. One of the primary concerns that I had wasn't so much with regards to like revenue generation, but more how we have like a demerit or a permit system that helps protect the communities that we have here when those short-term accommodations move into the area. So how do we ensure that they're being good stewards, good neighbors? I've heard of enhanced noise complaints, other safety concerns just with all of the vehicles, the parking, the moving. So like one of the things that I was looking for, and it was a little silent, so I just want to know how it fits in, was those other outliers that come not from actually what you're garnering from a generation perspective, but how it could tie in then to the bylaw, because we can't just write this into the bylaw without the MAT, I believe is what director was telling me. So I kind of want a little clarification if that's part of this project or not.
Director Friozzi, if you can answer that.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Clark. So the next stage of the process is really is looking at that whole short-term rental accommodation process, which would be looking at all those things around demerit points and all of those pieces. We can implement a short-term rental accommodation permitting process without the MAT. We just can't do it vice versa. So you're not going to be able to get different owners to be able to submit a MAT without the permitting process. There's no tracking and monitoring, and so we will be looking at that if council directs us to move forward with that next stage.
Councillor Blackwell?
Thank you. Through you, there was a mention in the report that there was, that we scraped the internet for short-term rental advertisements and things like that. Was that done at a particular point in time, like in March or whenever, or is that over time? Because I would expect as a seasonal location in the summer times, we have some accommodations here that are only 3 season. So would that accurately reflect, do you think, the whole year round?
I'm through you, Deputy Mayor Clark. We had Avenue Insights do the scraping of the internet, and they said it is a pretty good average of the year, but they would do it again if we're continuing on this. And then this is the company that would be able to do that and keep monitoring and tracking that as we go by. But they have so many different sites. I was actually surprised at all the different pieces that they look at and then throughout the year.
Councillor Blackwell?
Thank you. This isn't a follow-up, I guess, but a different question. In your research, were you able to find any communities that implemented a MAT tax, but saw or felt that it was so negative that they considered removing the tax, or have all had fairly successful outcomes?
Director Fields.
Through you, actually, I was going to turn over to Kevin because he's worked with different municipalities around that, so I'm going to put him on the spot.
Sure. I don't want to say definitively that none have, because I can't say that definitively, but no communities that we have worked with or seen have implemented it and then gone back on it. Now, I'm always eternally cautious when it comes to these things. So I think there's some point to be made that if you go down the road of starting implementing a MAT and having an organization built up to run it, it then sort of becomes it starts a life of its own. It's not as simple as just saying we're not going to do it anymore. So once you get the machinations in place, I think it's likely that even if you don't love it, you're going to keep it. That being said, one of the things that we looked at when we built out the elasticity part, so we checked on whether or not occupancy rates went down drastically in any communities that implemented a MAT. The data on that isn't super strong, just because as much as I'd love to have data on everything in the world, we don't get great data on it. But for the communities that implemented a MAT that we could get information on, we really didn't see any drop. It's very minor, and it's just noise. So through the data that we looked at and through anecdotal information that we haven't seen any overwhelming evidence or any evidence really that shows when you implement a MAT, there's this catastrophic drop. When we do comparisons, we always stress every community is different. And so I don't want to be pretending that it would be a slam dunk or anything like that. But there's initial hesitancy in a lot of communities, and then it gets brought in. And at least from a data perspective, we haven't seen the worst case scenarios that some folks have been concerned about in those communities.
Councillor Hinchford.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I've got the 3 points about the municipal accommodation tax. One, I would say while it's true that there's other centers along the Lake Huron shoreline that offer a summer experience, I think that there's, maybe we're bragging a little bit about the municipality, there's few, if any, that offer the proximity of downtown trails, heritage and historic buildings, waterfront camping, events, and a number of things I don't think I can remember in such a small walking distance footprint. You literally, if you're in the right spot, you can park your car and you can just do this on foot. The other was about non-year-round tourism. I'd be more concerned about maybe I will call it the ethics of applying a MAT. If occupancy rates were relatively constant year-round, but in the fall and winter season, you saw this wide swing where it's non-tourism related. In some ways, I think this almost kind of corrects for itself, where you don't have non-tourism related residents or visitors spending a disproportionate amount on a tax. And there was a comparison in the report to like Ottawa and Toronto, Collingwood. I can't remember the exact numbers, but not everybody who's going to Ottawa and Toronto to visit is going there for tourism either. So you have a lot of business travel in both of those places where they're in a sense helping to contribute or subsidize, pick your word, some of this sort of thing. The third one, there's the discussion, and maybe I just need a little like a peer check or verification here, about the municipality only being entitled to 50% of the revenue and the other max, with the remainder to go to a eligible tourism entity, which is a nonprofit. But the tourism budget for 2025, net of the amount budgeted for this project, was about $225,000. This means to me that the potential impact on the bottom line for the MOK goes beyond the 50% that would come to us directly, particularly if you essentially had this eligible tourism entity start to take over some of the things that the municipality of Kincardine funds itself related to tourism. Would that be correct? So I think that what I'm basically saying is I think there is a both direct and net direct and indirect benefit to the municipality beyond the max 50-50 legislated split. Is that correct?
I wonder if our CAO wants to comment on that.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, my understanding is that the split, you're correct, and that the split is 50-50. The tourism entity is the one that then takes over the activities, many of the similar activities that we're currently undertaking, and the associated amount that comes back to the municipality still must be spent on infrastructure and goods that are associated with tourism. So as I heard your explanation, that's my understanding as well.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through you. I had a couple of comments which are similar to Councillor Hinchberger's. But like right now, thank you for the report. I mean, it was a very thorough analysis, and I think that it's a great way to bring it back kind of in phases as well, so that we can help guide you kind of in your decision making as we go. And so I really appreciate that. And my assessment when I reviewed it was, I don't want to stop yet. I want to learn more. I want to understand kind of in particular, the cost of implementing the SRA and really then the net revenue that comes from it. But then to Councillor Hinchberger's point, what does that mean for our tourism function? And how would we shift some or all of that function and cost savings or whatever it is? So really when I reviewed this, I thought, well, I would really like to learn more and understand the true net revenue opportunities from implementing this. I did have one question. We talk about how the short-term accommodation is actually a potentially favorable and desirable step to take, regardless of whether or not we did the MTA and the MAT. And I was just wondering, is that a true statement? Do you think that having a short-term accommodation kind of registration process, or I can't think of the word, is valuable and favorable in itself?
Director Piozzi.
Through you, Deputy Mayor. I think the purpose of the permitting is to put some things in place, that put some safety guards in place. And so that's why it does have a very different purpose. And then then you do the monitoring, you have repercussions and in consequences if owners rent to places that are people that make a lot of noise. There are it does have a different purpose than the MAT and could have benefits. A lot of communities do put licensing in place, but it is not to sort of generate revenue. It's more to track, monitor, and make sure things are cohesive in the neighborhoods and not impacting them adversely.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I'll have to take the negative approach. I can't support a lot of this. I see administration nightmare coming, and the revenue is very limited. And when you start getting into short-term rentals and everything else, that part of that business, that becomes a real administration nightmare. The hotel and motel is a fairly easy thing to administer. And, I'd start small, I'd start at 1% and sort of see what kind of value it really is for us and for them. The short-term rental, the MAT, I would just forget for now. The licensing, you could probably have some rules and regulation that we could adopt into our bylaws and everything, just to make sure that the community would be satisfactory. But, getting into a MAT with the short-term rental accommodation, I think it would cost us a lot more. When I look at the numbers and everything, you're basically looking at very little, to be honest with you, for the amount of work that would take in your group. And we would probably have to add a full-time person. So I'll probably say I'm limited to what I'd ask you to go forward at this present time. Thank you.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Councillor Stewart. Yeah, I'm not surprised either. But pardon me. So what I was going to say is, the cost of administering, even if we put in rules for a bylaw, is going to increase costs. We already have major tax on our bylaw enforcement, and we have a limited budget there. So if this has the ability to even be cost neutral and helping us get better enforcement in place so that our bylaws are being adhered to, our standards are being adhered to, I think it's important to look at. And I know that they're not huge numbers, Councillor Stewart, but I do believe they match some of the dividends we've gotten from some of our other investments over time, and those come in handy too. So I guess the one question I would ask, kind of jumping on what Councillor Hinchberger was saying, is with water safety too. I was just wondering, if we wanted to invest in that waterfront to make it as safe as we possibly can, whatever advancements we could make, is that something that would qualify as tourism, or would that be completely separate? I'm just curious.
Director Fielcy.
Yeah, through you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, it would, but it's a tourism and an infrastructure related project that would qualify.
Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I'll just wade in with my comments as well. I think this is an excellent project, long overdue and much needed. Other places have beaten us to the punch for it. It allows the municipality to act in basically 3 different directions, and for a refreshing change in a thing that's all within our own wheelhouse and mandate. It lets us to increase revenue and generate revenue without putting the burden on our own taxpayers. It allows us to affect local housing policy and encourage longer-term rentals to local residents over, say, short-term transient workforces that might be coming through and be prioritized for a quick buck at the cost of quality of life for neighbors. And thirdly, it allows us to also optimize the municipal organization potentially by taking that tourism section and offloading that to a third-party organization that can execute many of the similar functions, but not on the taxpayer's dime. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. On the subject of revenue, we're probably months away from really getting into the 2026 budget, but in the back of my mind, like a storm cloud, is this notion that MPAC is going to eventually reassess properties. And the elephant in the room for us is the non-market evaluation or valuation of electricity generating properties. And I really like us, to the extent we can, to either get out ahead of that or to find contingencies in place to help us mitigate an adverse impact on the tax base. And right now I'm in a position where I'm open to looking at any and everything, and this is one of them for me.
Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you. So I have as always, I have a lot of thoughts, but I'm going to try and distill them down. So first, about the short-term rental, that's the one that we're looking at a licensing program potentially by 2026. I think Councillor Kavanaugh touched on some of the things that has multiple potential benefits. I've attended a couple conferences, spoke to quite a few communities that have looked at this. There's also alternatives in some short-term, in some communities, including a neighboring one. They've looked at outright banning this type of non-accommodated occupied short-term rental because of impacts on neighbors. The CMHA also has data showing, without a doubt, that short-term rentals place pressure on housing supply, especially in tourism areas. So it has led, even in our community, to long-term rentals being converted to short-term without increased benefit to the community, despite increased costs and increased pressures. One of the comments that was just raised by Councillor Hinchberger was about our budget. And I think one of the things we've seen year after year of our budget is there's ever increasing pressures. And one of the elements of that emerged from some of our strategic planning sessions was diversification of potential revenue sources. And I'm recognizing this isn't, going to necessarily raise enough money that we can go wild with our budget, but certainly I think the alternative is continuing to put pressure on those who live in the community. We owe them at least an opportunity to continue looking at alternative revenue sources. As well, I do want to acknowledge that there was quite a bit of feedback from our hotel and short-term rental accommodation partners that offer in the community, and there's a couple of things that I kind of want to touch on here. One is a bit of the chicken and the egg situation regarding the fact that we are kind of a summer-only season tourism destination. I think there's been conversations around how do we expand our shoulder and winter season events and attractions, and I think one of the opportunities is it was discussed that the tourism entity, whoever that may be in the future, that could draw revenue from this could actually work to support economic growth of possible businesses and events that would draw visitors in those times, that would help us grow our tourism sector specifically to accommodate and spread out that attraction. Now, some that winter weather is always a limitation, and we will always have that challenge here for at least a couple of months. Lastly, the other piece I kind of wanted to touch on, I think it's been mentioned a little bit, was there was some comments or concerns around what's the funding for and why would we charge this, and a reference to kind of a councillor or politician slush fund. As part of the establishment of the MAT tax specifically, would council be able, I mean, there is already limitations on exactly what we would be able to use this for, but I think when I think about things that could enhance both resident and tourism operations, it would be things like the waterfront, increased frontline staffing to support our park staff to keep up with our residents and our visitors, and things like trails. And we, as Councillor Hinsberger alluded to, we have a lot going on, not just within Kincardine itself, but across the municipality in terms of trails, tourism, access opportunities. And so I think making sure that we're very clear about what any of those funds would be used for. Specifically, I would say supporting the community services department would be my priority to ensure that we're continuing to be seen as a destination, again, for visitors, but also for our residents.
Sorry, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, through you. I just had one last question. Would or could the tourism entity that would be established be the one that delivers like the short-term rental licensing? So essentially the revenue that it receives, the 50%, can be used to pay for the implementation of licensing? And maybe that's not a question you know the answer to.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, the MAT tax that's divided in half, the portion that comes from short-term rentals, that part could, but the short-term rental accommodation, the permitting would be within the purview of the municipality.
I think we have had a really healthy discussion on this. Perhaps it's time that we actually, oh, sorry. Okay, this is the last question, Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
I wanted one clarifying question about the data scrape before I lose the consultants. I'm having a hard time in my own mental model understanding how if we only have short-term rentals in the summertime, so for our hotels, how we have the 3 hotels on the Highway 21 with the 4th coming. Like, I'm just curious how that data was scraped to support that it's mostly summer only. I understand for the short-term accommodations where people are renting cottages, but I just kind of wanted to have a better understanding of that comment, because I was having a hard time tracking it. And so, yeah, I wanted to clarify that. Sorry, thank you.
Director Fieldsey?
Through you, Deputy Mayor. So the McSweeney didn't do the scrape. It was Avenue Insights, and so they did the scrape of the data. But it was in the attachment was the hotel accommodators' feedback around the occupancy, and they were the ones that identified the issues that about it being very difficult in the winter months, and that they actually rent out to Bruce Power workers, construction workers, etc. in the winter to survive. That was that piece. So and the short-term accommodations weren't like we haven't had consultations around that. That would be the next phase where we'd get that input.
Okay, so we're going to call the vote.
Excuse me, Mayor. Could we have a recorded vote, please? Thank you.
I'll read the motion again, and we will have a recorded vote. That staff be directed to continue the exploration of the municipal accommodation tax and short-term rental accommodation tax licensing as outlined in the next steps identified in strategic initiatives 2025-10. And we are doing a recorded vote, so it starts with Councillor
Okay. Counselor Stewart,
No.
Counselor Blackwell,
Yes.
Counselor Williams, Counselor Steinhoff Gray,
Yes.
Counselor Kavanaugh,
Yes.
Counselor Hinchberger,
Yes.
Counselor Prenger,
Yes.
and Deputy Mayor Clark.
No.
And that is passed.
We have the Environmental Services Compliance Report, April 2025, and perhaps, Mark, if you want to do a summary overview, or if not, then perhaps I'll just have if there are any questions. There are no questions. Okay, that's great. We'll move on. Road Assumption Lakefield Estates Phase 2 Development Services 2025-10. There is a resolution that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine pass a road assumption bylaw for blocks 45, 47, 48, 49, 51, 53, 54, 55 on Plan 3M 226 along Mahood Johnson Drive, and further that the mayor and clerk be authorized to execute any documents on behalf of the municipality. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hinchberg. Are there any questions? Councillor Kavanaugh.
Thank you very much, and through the chair, general question to staff as we're adopting these roads here. These are sidewalks that was completed as part of the subdivision agreement for this community, and yet, well, just to the north of it, I noticed that we still don't have a sidewalk. 170 meters is missing from between the end of this we're adopting in and with Bruce Ave. Has there been any further discussion or reevaluation on the staff position regarding connecting that to this new sidewalk that we'll be assuming?
Are you Deputy Mayor Clark? Unfortunately, I definitely am not the correct person to ask for this. I'd have to go to my infrastructure and roads director to get better information on that one, but I'll gladly bring that information back if you wish.
Any other questions? We'll take a vote on that. All in favor? And that passes. Next item is for Kahuna Drive Encroachment Agreement Development Services 2025-11. Resolution that the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine directs staff to proceed with preparing the encroachment agreement for Kahuna Drive Street, and that the agreement be considered at a future meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Williams and seconded by Councillor Blackwell. Any questions? All in favor?
Yeah.
That passes.
6.5 meters.
Missed it.
Okay, so next one is the encroachment agreement 95C John Street, Development Services 2025-13. That the Council of the Municipality of Kincardine directs staff to proceed with preparing the encroachment agreement for 95C John Street for the existing cottage, and that the agreement be considered at a future meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Prenger, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Any questions? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank, through you, of course, the chair, but I'd like to thank the staff for putting this all together. This person's been looking around for a solution for her septic system problem, and it's right on the beach. There's no really road access, so it's nice to keep our beaches clean. So absolutely, job well done. I can support this.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor? And that passes. McWade Subdivision Part Lot Control Exemption Application, Nye Court Lot 6, 3M-220, Development Services 2025-14. Resolution that council pass a bylaw to remove certain lands known as Lot 6, Reference Plan 3M-2020 from Part Lot Control, and authorize the mayor and CAO to execute all required documentation on behalf of the municipality. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Hinchberger. Any questions? Councillor Hinchberger.
Very quickly, if I could get the manager of development services, isn't that a little unusual for this to happen after the buildings are built?
Through you, Deputy Mayor Clark, with this process with the registered plan, it depends on which lens you want to look through it. There's no benefiting public consultation with this, being it's severed and creating the laws for an existing building that's already established with the party walls already built. By having those party walls built, you can draw, for say, the reference plan to show the part lot control that divides that party line accurately. But again, you could do that up front, but you want to make sure, and I mean for darn sure, stake the foundation that it aligns exactly where your property line's been done through a plan of subdivision to create those lots. So this is another process that's like a consent, but not. It's just done after the fact.
Thank you. That helps me. Basically, it makes surveying much easier. Thank you.
No. Any other questions? All in favor? And that passes. Playground equipment installation parks facilities 2025-29. Resolution that council directs staff to install playground equipment at both Kin Huron Park and Lake Huron Highlands Park, and that council approve an additional 30,000 to the project budget to be funded by the Life Cycle Reserve Fund to ensure that both playgrounds meet the applicable accessibility requirements. Moved by Councillor Stewart, seconded by Councillor Williams. Any questions, comments? Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Normally, I like to shoot from the hip, but I thought I'd better put some notes out of here. I might be channeling some of my colleagues on here when it comes to budgeting and fiscal responsibility. So I'm not a really fan of progressive glasses. It has been said that the results of the neighborhood engagement identifying the overwhelming will of the respondents, and I would agree that that is true. However, it can also be said that the overwhelming will of the taxpayers is for us to manage expenses to the best of our ability in order to maintain taxes no higher than what they need to be. I don't expect members of the general public to fully appreciate the funding shortfall that municipalities find themselves in when it comes to infrastructure, but I think it's fair to say that there hasn't been near enough attention paid over the decades to the problem of how to pay for what has been built. This has caused us to make some difficult choices on some projects, for instance, like the Davidson Center track, the Princess to William Street footbridge comes to mind. And I don't think many of us can forget the significant amount of time we spent debating whether or not to replace the Concession 5 bridge. And there are some decisions that are come due in the future for us, notably on bridges to be one. What I think this means is that we should always be mindful of what we're going to build going forward. For in many ways, decisions we make today, they're not one-time commitments. I didn't have the note down here, but if you build a KIP trail, one way to view it is it's a gift to the municipality. Another way to view it is it's a commitment that you just gave the municipality to rehabilitate and or replace it 15, 20 years down the road. I support maintaining public ownership of both parks. I repeat again, I support maintaining public ownership of both of these parks. I put quite a bit of effort, including some of my colleagues, in seeing the public walkway installed from Birchwood down to the trail. And this council, in particular the one previous to us, spent a lot of money dealing with the trail situation down on the shoreline road allowance. Yet under the present circumstances, I don't support installing playground equipment representing a significant upgrade from the status quo at two parks slightly more than 400 meters apart. And for this reason, I will vote no to this resolution.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I guess I better be the positive one this time. Anyways, I like to thank the staff. We started off with a $70,000 capital. We went and asked the community, which we should have right away. The community actually was sent 149 questionnaire surveys. We somehow got back 267. What it is basically, and you're right, there is two parks fairly close, but the Parkwood Park is actually used by an incredible amount of people over in Lauren Beach and Mystic Cove. We do not have a park in those two areas. So they were very buoyant and they actually participated in the survey, a lot of people. You know, and they basically have spoken. And to be honest with you, I find this a fairly easy thing to support. I know that we only had 70,000, and if anyone around this room more considerate about dollars and everything is me, but you know, there is some savings. You know, when we do capital projects, sometimes we're over, sometimes we're under. The Brown Bridge looks like we're $1 million under. So there is some money in the budget. And I think our treasurer sort of said like, we can take the 30,000 a life cycle and put it towards this. I believe this is a real win-win. It's a win for us, it's a win for the staff, and it's a win for the community. I fully support it. Thank you.
Thank you, through you. My view is similar to Councillor Stewart's. When I thought about whether or not this is something that I could support, I thought about the capital budget that was approved and some of the cost savings that we've seen in the estimates that we've received, in particular around the Concession 5 bridge, and potential cost savings as it relates to, hopefully, the decision to change the boardwalk material hopefully reduces the cost there. So when I looked at this from the perspective of what was approved in the budget versus what we've seen already come through in some savings, the $30,000 more made sense to me as a factor kind of in my decision to support this. And I just wanted to say too that it was great to see the team kind of respond so quickly to the community's interest to be engaged, and so I appreciate that. And maybe this is just a question for clarity, and perhaps I didn't review it in the material. Is the change in the equipment, is it a significant upgrade from what's there, or is it similar?
Through you, Madam Chair, it is an upgrade because the existing equipment does not meet code and compliancy. So therefore, the what we've presented to you this evening is a concept of what we would be looking at for getting pricing that makes those that provides that compliancy that we're required.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray.
Thank you, through you, Chair. The one question that I will ask, based on some comments that have been made around the table, is if we, given Councillor Hinchberger's comments about the proximity of the park, and knowing that we have other parks that are in a queue for rehab that are also aging out, to put two so close together in the same allotted amount of time, I understand that there could be savings, right? Because you're so close to one another, you can use the same contractor. But does this mean that we're postponing in other communities enhanced? I'd like to understand if we cascaded something else out.
Director.
Thank you for the question, and through you. We continue to have a long list of playground equipment that needs to be upgraded. Typically, and the report indicates that typically playground equipment's replaced at 15 years of age. And as I said, we've got a considerable number that need to be replaced. We are still doing Scotts Point this year as well, as it is extremely old, and there's lots of issues with that as well. So our 5-year capital forecast will continue to provide updates on a recirculating basis for our playgrounds. We don't want to be in a position where we are replacing 5 or 6 in 1 or 2 years. We want to make sure that it's a fiscally responsible approach, and that each year we're looking at playground equipment to replace.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you very much. And through the chair, I appreciate all the work staff has done with the outreach and getting community feedback. And to Councillor Stewart's point, community feedback was very thorough. My personal feelings going to this is I believe that green space should remain green space and owned and held publicly as much as possible. And so for that reason, I'm in favor of retaining both within the municipality as park space. Where I personally have seen this happen now with 3 budget cycles where council gets ambitious and draws a little bit from the life cycle reserve fund. And then in the next budget cycle that comes forward, you see increase to be charged back $30K. And so in my mind, mentally, it's taken a little while to get there, but I have to frame that as we're spending next year's money already. I think after reviewing everything, what I have seen and having gone to the site and talked to local members of the community, I would be in favor of retaining both as green space and keeping the $70K that's currently budgeted without drawing into reserves and putting that forward on the waterfront park. No.
Are there any other?
I'm just sharing my thoughts so that when the vote comes, it is clear.
Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you. This has been a challenging process for me, perhaps. And I want to be clear that I don't believe it's been that way because of our staff, the community engagement, which I appreciate on both fronts. I want to go back a little bit. So in 2024, we did our Parks and Rec Master Plan. And I went and reviewed that and looked at different benchmarks that we looked at for park size, distance, playground equipment, etc. And aligning with provincial standards, the standards that we as an organization looked to adopt were playgrounds within a range of 500 to 800 walking radius. And so, as mentioned, these parks are quite close, and one park would meet the 800-meter walking radius for this entire neighborhood. There are some areas in our community certainly that are at a much greater deficit of park equipment. And so in that case, from kind of an equity lens, I had some back and forth thoughts. One of the things for me is we have gone through several very challenging budget cycles at a very challenging economic situation for people. And it's been preached over and over that we need to recognize, this isn't monopoly money, this is taxpayer money, and we need to make some tough choices. One of the things for me is that we have made some tough choices and we have a lot more in front of us. So we've had to look at reducing the scope of the Davidson Center track and turning to groups to say, could you help fundraise to make this possible? We've looked at closing bridges. We are looking at closing quite a lot of rural bridges, and those have significant impacts. For issues of health and safety, those are issues that I think are needs versus wants. And so in some sense, a second playground within two publicly owned parks is above and beyond the standard that we have looked at, have set. That said, it's very hard to say to playgrounds. No one wants to get up in the morning and say, I don't want to build you a playground. I think the other piece that was discussed and that I think bears quite a lot of consideration is that council elected to go and ask the community what they thought, and the community did provide us with a response. I think there has been some challenges with trust in terms of our community engagement, and I think if there was not an expectation or a comfort level with actually building two parks, that we should not have perhaps turned to the community and asked, what do you think, if we were willing to listen and accept what that was said. So I have gone back and forth quite a bit. I appreciate those who have had to listen to me dither and try to figure out what I want to do. What I will say is I think that if this choice is made, which is, again, above and beyond our standards, above and beyond what other elements of the community are making, we have to recognize that our Parks and Rec plan also did acknowledge that with our existing staff capacity, I mean, there was quite a lot of talk about capital. Playgrounds don't just get installed once and that's it. They have maintenance that has to happen. They have staff that have to go out and check on them, that support them, that replace fill, that replace elements to it. Those are all operational costs. To have two is more expensive to maintain than to have one. And so if we are to look at supporting this, I think that there needs to be some real consideration of how are we going to keep it going? How are we going to operate this? That means potentially looking at increasing to our frontline staff in Parks and Rec, which is already underfunded, and understanding that there are consequences to going above and beyond the standards that we have set, and the precedent that this may impact for other communities that also are looking at going above and beyond the standards that we have set. So I guess all that to say is I'm still undecided.
And put up to.
I know.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, the Parkwood Park is actually just not for Parkwood. As I explained to you, it's well over the 400, 800, even a mile. People from Mystic Cove actually come to the Parkwood. There is a bridge and everything. They go through the path. People from, Lorne Beach go. I mean, so this park is well used. It's just not a park for the Parkwood people. It's a Parkwood for everything from Imber Huron basically south. So if you decided to take away Parkwood or you decided not to basically replace the equipment, we're not trying to ask the new standards. It's astronomical what the new standards are. I mean, you go and look at the playground equipment, most people would say it looks great. But unfortunately, it's rules and regulations by the provincial government that force us to do this. So we're not really upgrading. All we're doing is basically replacing the existing equipment. And the one thing we're going to do, and especially Parkwood, we basically have bare grass. It's nothing. And we're actually going to put a little bit of a safety zone around it and put some wood chips in there because it'll be a little more safer for the children. I don't really see a problem with the budgets. Budgets come and go. Capital budgets, we've been all experiencing this, to some increase, some decrease. We've done a pretty good job over the years where we have not really expanded our capital budget over what we anticipate as a gross number. Actually, most years we come under budget for capital. This year, we're probably about $1.5 million to $2 million under budget already. So, it's not a huge dollar amount. The community has spoken. I really do think that this one's an easy one. The community wants it. They're taxpayers. I don't see a problem with raising the funds, 30,000, taking a life cycle and giving them what they exactly want. They don't get a lot from us. They're out in the rural area. They're not in downtown Kincardine. And I'm a firm believer that we need to sponsor more things in the rural area. Thank you.
Councillor Pringer.
Thank you, through you, Chair. I have kind of a two-pronged question. So I'd like some clarification, trying to understand exactly what the report is saying in terms of the equipment. The two renderings that are in here, one, I believe what it's saying is that one is an example of what the current funding would be able to purchase, and the other one is what it could purchase if we up the funding as requested. But it also says on page 3 that the image below is a sample rendering of the equipment that would be supported by the budget, but it would be split between both parks. So this entire thing wouldn't be in one park. Some of it would be in one and some of it would be another. Can that be clarified?
Mike.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I can definitely clarify that. So that would be something very similar to this would be in both parks. So not this rendering. I just didn't put two of the same rendering.
Okay, thank you. So just so everybody's clear, it would be duplicated, basically, not that equipment would be split in half between the two parks.
Exactly. There may not be exactly the same features that are in here, but it's just a sample.
Okay, so my follow-up then is that currently the smaller park, I believe that's Parkwood, right? The smaller one, does have less equipment and more open space. And what I heard from the community is that they actually really like that open space because it's used for a different type of play than the play at the larger park. My request would be that the same sort of setup in terms of keeping that open space with a smaller playground on that site would be kept, so that those uses could continue. About over 20 years ago, aging myself, I used to cut both these parks, mow the lawns there, do the line trimming, because the company I worked for was the one hired by the municipality to do it. And I used to think, oh man, when I have a family, I would love to live down here because these are down here. So I totally understand why the communities want this. And provided that the considerations or the things noted by council and the community are taken into consideration when designing these, I can support this.
Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you, I'm just wondering, perhaps if I can check in with staff regarding two things. First of all, there was some comment made and there was some feedback provided within the survey that there was a preference for consolidation at the Lake Huron Highlands Park. I'm wondering if you could speak, the one in Parkwood, if you could speak to whether that's actually feasible.
Director.
Yeah, thank you for the question, through you. We definitely looked at that too from a staff perspective. We were looking at where people lived as well and path of travel. And in that particular parcel of property, there are some challenges with the topography. So there's an additional cost in ensuring that we bring in fill to level that out. Also the potential, if we were to spend, let's say if it was the 70,000 on that parcel of property, it would mean that the potential of removal of some additional more trees in order to fit it on that footprint. Hence the reason why our original recommendation was more for the Birchwood playground equipment, because we wanted a fiscally responsible approach, and that was the reason why.
Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you, through you. And I can just get ahead now on this one, maybe. The proposed upgraded park that meets the accessibility considerations and to the one that would be if we expanded the budget to 100,000, that would be able to fit on that property without additional excavation, tree removal, that kind of thing, however.
The original report was for 70,000. So if you are,
sorry, to clarify, what I'm trying to say is in the report as it stands right now, if we were to approve 2 playgrounds on the upgraded total budget of 100,000, which is what's being requested, if we were to approve that upgraded playground that would meet the accessibility standards, that could fit on within that park without additional tree removal. Is that correct? Okay. And finally, just procedurally, could I get some clarification of what would happen if the motion fails? Would it automatically go back to what's in the budget, which was consolidation at the King Huron Park, the one on Birchwood, versus is that kind of where it would go?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I would suggest that you probably would want to put another motion on the floor to provide direction to staff as to what it is you would like to see, and how much you'd like to spend and in which park.
Okay, so if there are no further questions or comments, we're going to call the vote. I'll read it again. The council directs staff to install playground equipment at both King Huron Park and Lake Huron Highlands Park, and that council approve an additional 30,000 to the project budget to be funded by the Life Cycle Reserve Fund to ensure that both playgrounds meet the applicable accessibility requirements.
And I'll request a recorded vote.
Okay. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, in favor.
Councillor Blackwell?
Yes.
Councillor Williams?
Yes.
Councillor Steinhoff Gray?
Yes.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
No.
Councillor Hinchberger?
No.
Councillor Pranger?
Yes.
And Deputy Mayor Clark?
Yes. So that passes. Okay, matters for decision, notice of motion at the meeting. Councillor Stewart?
Yes, thank you very much. And through you, Chair, I have a notice of motion for our meeting, I guess, in June 11th. And my notice of motion is for council to approve a new exemption amendment H in our current development charges bylaw 2021-114 for essential services, childcare, and elderly care facilities. So we'll take that up on the June 11th meeting. It was presented by me and seconded by Councillor Steinhoff Gray.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's for our June 11th meeting. Consideration of bylaws, delegation of powers and duties policy bylaw. And there's a resolution that the delegation of powers and duties policy bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed, and be numbered as bylaw number 2025-070, moved by Councillor Blackwell, seconded by Councillor Hinchberger. Any discussion? Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through you, this is just because it's on my mind because of an issue that came before council just a couple days ago. One of the delegated powers under this bylaw is the ability to authorize sign exemptions to our CBO director, manager of building, I believe. Did I get that right? Yes. Okay. And I'm wondering, I don't know how to potentially word to request, but what I'm wondering about is it's possible to have some input on the kind of a first deviation. So for example, in the downtown core, the Bruce sign that had the illuminated backing was the first deviation from what was downtown, and then kind of set a precedent that that's okay going forward. I recognize, and I think we've had some discussion around sign bylaws that are size or temporary or those kind of things aren't as concerning. I think specifically with the BIA looking at even their sign bylaw right now and wanting to the sign bylaw within that area, wanting to change some things. I'm just wondering that might, if we delegate completely, my understanding is we delegate completely and then we would not have any kind of input into that. Is that accurate?
CEO.
Through you, Chair, when you delegate authority as council, it's always the opportunity for council to take that matter back if they wish. So there is always that opportunity. If there was a matter that was perhaps contentious, it could still come forward to council by the CBO. Even though they have delegated authority, they could still bring it back for direction and decision because you retain the power as the council to execute that authority as well.
Any other comments? Councillor Stewart?
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I'm getting concerned. You know, we just released strong mayor powers and now we're delegating the powers and duties. I think the rest of us will probably be able to go home and Zoom this. So I'm a little bit concerned about, the one thing I'm concerned, most of them are fine. You know, I can support them. The one thing I'm really a little concerned is the legal matters. It's at the bottom of page 6, top of page 7. I don't really feel comfortable, I'll be honest with you, delegating up to $50,000 to the CAO. I think it's important for council to understand any time that we're being sued or something of legal matters, it needs to come in front of council and maybe we'll give you the right to delegate or the right to, you know, basically handle it. But I'd like to see that removed and I could support the rest. So I guess, can I make a friendly amendment? I know it's not friendly, but I'm trying to. Okay, I'm going to make an amendment that we accept everything except for the bottom of page 6, the legal matters. Is that defined enough for everybody?
You'll need to have a seconder.
Yeah, I know.
Is there anyone seconding that?
Then it doesn't get done.
And it doesn't get done. I wonder if I can also give the CAO perhaps an opportunity just to comment on those comments.
Sure, I'm quite happy to speak to it. This is a reflection of the current practice. So this isn't most, as was noted in the report, most of the delegations are the existing practice. So it's not new. There's only, I think, 5 items where staff were recommending that new delegations be provided. I think the challenge with having all matters come before council before taking any action would be the delay in efficiently managing any claims that come forward. But I'd be happy to, and I think we've done this in the past, share in closed session what it is that, what the standing is of any actions being brought before council.
And that would satisfy my needs too. Thank you.
Well, it's a win-win then. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you. Through. Yeah, I was just going to comment that there's some things related to risk or other things that we need our legal counsel to be able to act quickly. So I'm personally comfortable with that. The other one I wanted to just mention, it may be one of the 5 new ones. If there's only 5 new, it's kind of like playing a fun game to find them. But the one that I was appreciative of was having and delegating the power to remove holding provisions. I'm hoping that may slightly speed up some developments or some things within our development services operation. And I think that's where the knowledge base lies. So I'm quite happy to hand that one off.
Okay, so if there's no other comments, let's take a vote on this. Do I need to read the resolution again, or are you guys good? All in favor? That passes. Okay, McKechnie Pharmacy Lease Bylaw, Resolution 0528-2025-09. Resolution that the McKechnie Pharmacy Lease Amendment 2025 bylaw be deemed to be read a first, second, and third time, finally passed and numbered as bylaw number 2025-071, moved by Councillor Kavanaugh. Oh, sorry.
Apologies. Before this comes on the floor, I have a declaration to make. So the lease is for space within the Hawthorne Community Medical Clinic. In accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, I, Roy Kavanaugh, declare general indirect pecuniary interest as related to the Kincardine Family Health Organization and then Dr. A. Kavanaugh Medicine Professional Corporation for the general reasons, as well as having a shareholder interest in a corporation that also rents in the building. Thank you.
Okay, moved by Councillor Steinhoff Gray, seconded by Councillor Prenger. Any questions or comments? All in favor? And that passes.
Break.
Motion.
Yeah, okay, so motion to pass bylaws. The following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 20th day of May 2025. Mahood Johnson Drive assumed as public highway bylaw 2025-072, part lot control exemption for lot 6, plan 3M-220, bylaw 2025-073, moved by Councillor Blackwell, seconded by Councillor Stewart. Is there any discussion? All in favor? And that passes. Did we want a few minutes to take a break? Okay, let's have 5 minutes.
Or I gotta go to the washroom.
Resuming the meeting.
Hey, use the gavel. Yeah.
Matters for information consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered routine and are enacted in one motion as a matter arising. The exception to this rule is that a council member or the chief administrative officer may request one or more items to be removed from the consent agenda for separate discussion and action. Are there any items to be removed from the consent agenda? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, in the interest of time, just because we got the close meeting, but I'd like to note that 8.1B, the draft parks bylaw, I'm really interested in seeing more of that. So I'm hoping we're going to have a delegation or a staff report on that. And the other one is the C, is the fire and emergency services. Once again, I've read it, but I'm looking forward to seeing a staff report full time, and we'll go through it. But jobs well done from both groups. Thank you.
Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Deputy Mayor, what the heck? 8.1 Alpha Development Services Report. Oh, Dwayne left, did he? I'll withdraw. I don't think anybody here can answer my question.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to say it is tangentially related to the Development Services Report. I wondered whether now that we have a nice base asphalt layer on Bruce Avenue, whether there is anything the manager of Development and Services could tell us about the status of the development, the Brown subdivision was going to be my question.
Nice road too.
If he could respond offline, that would be fine to council. Yep.
Road, well done.
Any other items to be pulled from the consent agenda? The council approved the recommendations contained in the consent agenda dated May 28th, 2025, and direct staff to proceed with all necessary administrative actions. Moved by Councillor Blackwell, seconded by Councillor Stewart. All in favor? And that passes. Member of Council's general announcements. Councillor Hinchberger.
Thank you, through you, Deputy Mayor. Just some recognition. I'm a regular driver throughout the municipality, so I'm pretty aware of everything that's going on. And one that struck my eye this week was the sidewalk replacements as part of the normal operating budget. And what I thought was good coordination with an accessibility aspect of it. There are 3 accessible parking spots between Durham and Queen. 1 was original, 2 are new. And I noted that when it looks like there was a good coordination between infrastructure and development and the contractor performing the sidewalk work, such that when they poured the concrete for the 1 new, 1 upgraded and 2 new ones in that section of land, it's been poured as one monolithic pour from the edge of the curb right up to the sidewalk. And essentially, I mean, it's little things like that. If you're going to have somebody who's in a wheelchair and needs to move, right now, I imagine maybe they're going to cut control joints to control cracking, but it's one smooth, and it's little things like that that I kind of tend to look for examples of where different parts of the organization are working with other parts or even externally to do things in an efficient manner. So I'd just like to pass that on to I&D. Thanks.
Councillor Pringer.
Thank you. Just wanted to let everybody know that the Kincardine Lions giant yard sale is coming up in about a week and a half on Saturday, June 7th. So drop off is the day before on Friday, June 6th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. You have all day to get your stuff there. And this is a great event. It raises a lot of money actually which goes back into the community, and everybody gets to find treasures and get rid of stuff. So hope to see you guys there.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Just want to do, through you, the chair, just want to do a shout out to Jessica. Jill, Jessica? Okay. Just to, she does a great job in keeping us organized. I'll tell you, I have so many events to go to this summer, and all the time I'm asking her, I said, what am I doing this week? And she tells me. So, just wanted to say, I know Lori and your group does the same thing, but keeps us council hopping. There's lots of activities, and it's great to see. So just thank her on behalf of myself and council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stewart. I think it's important that we note how much the staff does and how much goes on behind the scenes. So thank you for that acknowledgement. Councillor Blackwell.
Thank you through you. Yes, as Councillor Stewart noted, it's our busy season is approaching. One thing I wanted to acknowledge was last week, the Kincardine Theatre Guild was recognized quite significantly by the Western Ontario Drama League. They, in the fall, put on the show The Pirates of Penzance, and they had 11 nominations and 6 wins. So the wins that they received included Best Costumes with Holly McAdam, Outstanding Performance, Alex Paroff, Best Musical Direction, Clayton Peters, Comedy Timing, The Daughters, Savannah Isabel, Page, and Emily, Scene Transitions, Entire Cast and Crew, and Outstanding Ensemble. I think we are incredibly lucky to have such a dedicated and talented group in our community. I know in the upcoming, they're assisting high school to do Chicago, also having auditions coming up for Into the Woods. Additionally, I wanted to know that Pride was, Kincardine Pride Group was here earlier. They have a couple of events coming up. There is a fashion show on June the 1st in collaboration with the Women's House. There's also Park, which I know our Kincardine Welcomes team is supporting, which I'm devastated to be missing. That sounds amazing. And lastly, I just wanted to acknowledge as well, I'm hoping I'm not stealing anybody's thunder, but it was brought to my attention that there's a Family Fun Fest happening in Tiverton on June 1st as well, which sounds like fun for the whole family. So perhaps Councillor Steinhoff-Gray can expand on that if she knows more than I do.
Councillor Williams?
None at this time.
Councillor Steinhoff-Gray?
I'm feeling remiss and I'm going to have to find out more information about that event. We did have an excellent craft show at the Tiverton Arena last weekend. I was out to look at all the vendors. So that was fantastic. I hope they have more of them. And they were also doing a number of fundraisers. And I was going to say, Jen, Councillor Stewart's already got all of my nice junk for the Tiverton Fall Fair garage sale or yard sale that was hosted by the Tiverton Lions. So with that, I have no other announcements. Thanks.
Councillor Kavanaugh?
Thank you very much. I have 2 announcements to share with the community. The first is that in partnership with Kincardine Pride and the Bruce County Public Library, the municipality will be hosting a movie night featuring Strange World in Victoria Park. It's a free event that's going to be held in the park at 6 p.m. and there will be some other family-friendly activities as well as the bookmobile on site and food vendors. And the movie's going to start when the sun sets or at dusk or roughly 7:30 p.m. So come on out to that.
What date?
That is the 7th, June 7th. Thank you very much for the assist. And secondly, I have the Rock with Your Docs announcement. I have tickets. If you want tickets, come find me. I'm happy to give you tickets. This is my best Doug Kennedy. This is my best Doug Kennedy impression, right? I got tickets. You know where to find me. Who needs tickets? It is June 20th and it will be outside the Davidson Center. So hope to see you there.
I was going to do that. It's okay. Go ahead, Councillor Blackwell. No, this weekend is the Tour of Kincardine. We know there's going to be some cyclists on the road on Saturday morning, so perhaps we need to take some extra care. It's a pretty busy and well-organized tour, actually, and I think I have inadvertently volunteered for that, so I will be doing something there. But yeah, it's a great tour. It has a lot of participants, and for those driving, be extra careful when you're looking on the lookout for a cyclist. Jill.
Yes, exciting news. So the Lions Park splash pad at the Davidson Center will be opening on June the 7th, and it operates from 10 till 8 p.m., 10 in the morning to 8 p.m. until the end of September. The new splash pad in Tiverton will also be opening on that date as well, but the grand opening is going to be on Saturday, June the 28th. So we'll be sure that there is nice weather then.
Okay, the resolution is that council move into closed session pursuant to section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended for the purposes of considering closed session minutes dated May 14th, 2025, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, position recruitment, retention, update considerations, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, Kincardine Family Health Organization lease, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, Kincardine Agricultural Society agreement, a position, plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality, W.E. Thompson lease agreement, and further that council return to regular open meeting upon completion, moved by Councillor Hinchberger and Councillor Williams. All in favor? And that is carried.